Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. It's sad we can't meet together, but it's lovely that we can together look at God's word and think about it hard and pray. So let's just dive right in. I hope you got the handout. It's just in the description below. So do just grab that, print that out. You're going to need to be able to draw and scribble. We'll be doing various things throughout, so do grab that. Bro. So we're in Psalm 121 today. Okay, so we're just after Simon's one in 120, 121. So as Simon helped us see last week, the Bible often describes the Christian life as a walk. Christians are called the way in Acts. That's what they're known as, the way, the path. They're walking along the way. And at the end of the Bible, it describes the end of the Christian walk as arriving in a beautiful city, which is our home. And that's where we're going to live with God intimately and safely. That is what the Christian journey is. We're going through this world to reach that heavenly city in the new creation. So the Old Testament people of God, they would have also done this kind of travelling journey, but they did a kind of picture of it, a much smaller scale than our lives being a journey. They would go on a journey to Jerusalem, up these mountain paths to get to their home, their city. And as they walked up these roads, they sung these psalms, these songs. They're called the Psalms of Ascent. And they all come in patterns of three. So we're in the first pattern of three. So last week, Simon talked about, Simon was helping us see through Psalm 120, the homesickness, right? It's a difficult psalm, isn't it? Because it's so real, so raw. This is a traveller who is feeling really homesick. They've got this difficulty of living in a hostile world. It feels like the world is against them, and it's just them versus the world. So that's the song of the homesick. And then next week, Sophie-Anne is going to bring Psalm 122, and you know what? It's an amazing psalm. It's all about arriving home, and it's so wonderful. There's that picture of them standing in Jerusalem's gates, they're at home. They're standing in the doorway. They're full of joy and peace. It's a wonderful psalm, and that's next week. And this week we've got the one in the middle. We've had homesick, and then there's homecoming, or kind of arriving home, and then in the middle there's the journey, and that's what Psalm 121 is. This is a song of a pilgrim. That's just another word for like a traveller. Song of a traveller or a pilgrim on the road. So if we are travellers on the road, then this is our song. If we are travellers, if we are Christians who are travelling through this world to our heavenly city, then this psalm right here is our song. So I've just got a few little headings to help us think through some of this stuff. So the first one is help. Okay. So let's have a look down at Psalm 121. I'm going to read it for us, and then we'll dig in. So Psalm 121, a psalm of ascents. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you or keeps you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over or keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over or keep your life. The Lord will watch over or keep your coming and going, both now and forevermore. So that's the psalm we're looking at today, guys. And you see there, that psalm begins with the travellers as they're walking along their roads. They look up to the mountain roads that they're going to need to follow to get home. And they're dark roads, home to many dangerous kind of bandits and thieves. Enemies have come from the mountains before in the Old Testament. That's where enemies come from, and they will do again. And it's a long and tiring journey ahead of them. For some of them, the question is, will it be too long so that they're going to have to give up? Or will it be maybe too dangerous so that they won't be able to reach Jerusalem? So there are many challenges waiting for these travellers, for the pilgrims. And it makes them think, what if we never get home? That there are many challenges waiting for them. And seeing the danger that they will face along the road to get home, the psalmist asks, do you see there in verse 1? The psalmist asks, where will my help come from? Recognizing that the threat's against him, that the travellers acknowledge that they need help. And it's the same story for the Christian. We are travellers who face a dark road, filled with dangers which threaten to stop us reaching our home with the Lord. What if the sin within you is so great that it causes you to be thrown off the right path? Then you'll never get home. Or what if the difficulty at home, that awful tension, it just gets too much and you can't manage it anymore, and you just think being Christian is too much for me, and you don't get home. Or if the depression or anxiety gets so bad that you don't even remember why you're still walking, and you give up, you'll never get home. And there's hundreds of situations, we can think, what if this situation happens or that situation happens, stopping us getting home? So many threats. So much could go wrong. We aren't strong enough to keep going. There's a real danger that actually we won't make it to the new creation, that we won't make it home. So the Christian also, just like the traveller in this psalm, is to cry out for help. But the big theme in this psalm is not actually the dangers that the pilgrims are going to face. It's something else. Just for a few minutes, have a read through the whole psalm again, just on your own, and look for repeated ideas or words and underline them or circle them. Just have a look through now. Brilliant. I'm just going to run through some of the ones I saw. There's a few on there. So the first one is like Lord. That's coming again and again in all capitals. It's Lord, 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 Lord. There's I think 5 or 6 times in there. Lord. And another one, depending on your translation, is keep. This is the big one, keep, or maybe in our translation it's watch over. In the little excerpt or the psalm that I've put at the top of the handout, I've put both next to each other so we can see how it works. But yeah, so it's kind of Lord, keep, and watch over. Now, just a little discussion about this keeping and watching over. That they're different translations of the same word, and sometimes when there's different translations, we want to think about which one's better, because often there might be one that helps us better understand the original word. But I think both of these are equally good, actually, but they just come at the word from different angles. So I just thought we'd think about them for a second. Just think about the watching over word. The Lord will watch over you. And it's that picture of a parent, that you can think of a parent looking after like a little kid, and they're watching over this child as they play, and they're making sure that they're safe the whole time. And if the child just starts crawling off and reaches for something dangerous, well, the parent intervenes and pulls the kid back to where he's safe. That's the kind of watching over that this word is pointing at. And another way that it's translated is keeping, or the Lord keep, or the Lord is your keeper. Again, you can think of a parent with a young toddler going into town on a busy Saturday, right? And the parent says to the child, "Don't worry, I will hold your hand the whole time and I won't let you go. I will keep you until we get home." That's the idea of keeping there. So I might use both interchangeably, but we just want to get that full picture of what that word means. It's a really wonderful thing, and it's used 6 times, and it really underlines the point of the psalm. So the big point in this psalm is this, right? We've seen the Lord and keeping over. The big point is this, is that the Lord will keep you until you get home. It's a psalm which tells us of the safety and security of God's people as they travel home through dangerous lands. So onto our next little heading. It's the Lord is my help. The psalmist almost seems to shout. He says, "Where does my help come from?" in despair. And then he shouts, "The Lord is my help." The Lord, who revealed himself as Yahweh, that's what Lord in all capitals means in our Bible. It's the word English version of Yahweh, which is the name that God revealed to Moses just before he rescued his people out of slavery. Just before he showed himself to be that powerful, loving, and jealous God when he saved them out of Egypt. And when I say jealous, it seems a bit odd, doesn't it? But it's when I say jealous, And when the Bible talks about God being a jealous God, the Bible means God's attitude is like this. He's saying, no one else can have my people. They're mine. That's what God's like. He's that Exodus God. Exodus Lord. And secondly, have a look down at verse 2. See, he made all things. He's creator of heaven and earth. He's so powerful and he's so in control. Nothing happens outside of his control. Every situation that we face, every danger or burden which threatens to stop us is within his created world. He is that Genesis Lord. So what Jesus said in the New Testament is that nothing can pluck us out of his hand. We're so safe with our God. He's that jealous and powerful and in control God who cares so much for his people. Just on to our next little things. We're moving down this psalm. We're in verse 3 and 4 now. We're looking. This heading is He Never Sleeps. And I just thought I'd share with you. I recently came across a quote from a businesswoman called Mary Crowley. And she said this: "Every evening I turn my worries over to God. He's going to be up all night anyway." I just thought it's awesome, isn't it? Such a cool way of thinking about it. And so true. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if she based that off Psalm 121. It says this: "He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you, or he who keeps you, will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over you or keeps you, who keeps Israel, will neither slumber nor sleep." So for these travellers, you can picture them travelling, can't you? They're travelling by day and by night. They're trying to get home. And they're going to need to set up camp and sleep, aren't they? No one can keep going forever. And it's then when they're most vulnerable, when they're asleep, that's when their enemies will come and raid and attack and steal. So what an amazing assurance this must be for them. If you picture yourself in those shoes, like you may be asleep and dead to the world, but the Lord never sleeps. And that means that he will be up all night, watching over you and keeping you. And then suddenly this hostile world, where anything could go wrong, becomes such a safe place when your loving and powerful God is watching over you 24/7. And have a look there, just at the beginning of verse 3. You might want to underline that or something, because it just stood out to me. Have a look. It's not just the external forces, like the outside things, that God's going to protect his people from. It's even from their mistakes that he's going to protect them. Their bad decisions, thinking that it's that crumbling section of path that's going to be safe to walk on. Even then, when they make foolish decisions, God won't let them fall. And it's true also for God's people now. The hostile world becomes a really safe place for you and for me if we're trusting in the Lord. The hostile world becomes a really safe place when your Lord is up all night protecting you and watching over you. Even your sinful and foolish decisions don't end your travelling. They don't end your Christian life because the Lord keeps you. Now, none of this means that bad things won't be done by you or to you. But it does mean that in all of it, through all of it, the Lord won't let you fall. He won't let you stop. He'll keep you. He'll look after you. He's watching over you 24/7. He never sleeps. And just if we look down, we're on to verse 5 and 6 now. We're under the heading, He is our shade. And we're going to do a little bit of drawing in a second. Now, this verse 5 and 6, it begins by reminding the travellers that Yahweh, that the Lord, is their keeper. Yahweh watches over them. You know, the Lord is your keeper. And that's the truth that is being sung through the whole psalm. That's the big thing, isn't it? God is your keeper. We just read in verse 2 that Yahweh is powerful and loving and jealous enough to keep his people. They're his and he won't let them go. And then in verse 3 and 4, we just read now that Yahweh is always awake. So he'll always keep his people. There's no time in the day when he'll stop. And here we see yet another angle on that same truth that Yahweh keeps his people. So as you can picture again, I want you to use your imaginations. And as the travellers are walking in the Middle East, it gets really hot, right? You've got the blazing sun above them and they're getting really hot. And there's a real danger of sunstroke, of heat stroke, which could be fatal. So they really need shade or else they'll die. And here in verses 5 and 6, we see that actually the Lord himself is the traveller's shade. It's him himself who stands between the traveller and the burning sun, which would kill him. And God doesn't just provide like a cloud so that the sun goes away. No, it's him himself. He himself stands between the sun and the traveller. He shades us from all harm. And you know, this is a picture, this psalm is a song, it's full of poetry, and this is a picture which will be fully fulfilled in Christ. Because, you know, on the cross, every danger which would have hit us and stopped us getting home, that was intercepted by Jesus. He hung there as our shade from the scorching heat of wrath that would have burned us up. The scorching sun of God's wrath, because of our sin, was going to strike us and burn us up. But Jesus carried his cross up a hill outside Jerusalem so that if we come to him, we can be protected from his wrath. Isn't that amazing? He took it. He went on that cross so that we would be safe in the shadow that his cross makes. We can be safe in the shadow of the cross. Isn't that amazing? Now, take a moment just to draw a picture of what this might look like. It always helps me to really get an idea of what they're talking about. Take a moment to draw a picture of what this might look like, and I'll show you what my little picture looks like. I'm not very good at drawing, but there you go. I'm not sure whether you can see that, but so you see, you've got the sun and the cross and the shadow, and someone safe and someone who has refused to come into the shadow. But yeah, but just take a moment now, just to draw that, see what that might look like. Brilliant. Okay, so look at that cross you've just drawn, at the way that the shadow is being cast, and actually we can be safe in the shadow from the scorching sun. The cross there is evidence that God keeps us. There's no threat that can throw us off the homeward path now. There's no depression, no sin, no sickness, no tension at home. Nothing in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that's in Christ Jesus our Lord. That's what Romans says. And that's all because he was and he is our shade. He protects us. He himself stood there, hung there, to shield us, to save us. So we finish, going back down again, in verse 7 and 8, have a look down, with a summary which underlines how far-reaching Yahweh's keeping is, how far-reaching God's keeping is. It says he will keep you from all evil. Whatever happens to you, no matter how small an evil it is, or how large an evil it is, he will keep you. It says that he will keep your life. And in English that sounds like he's just saying, oh, God will keep you alive, which is, I suppose, true for some of it, but then people die, right? But it's more than just God will keep you alive. It's saying that God will look after and protect every part of you, kind of your very essence, your very soul, what it means to be you. He'll protect you and keep you even after you die, and he'll be kept by God. And have a look down again. That the Lord will keep your going in and your coming out. That's a Jewish way of saying that whatever you do, God will keep you. And we ask, well, okay, but for how long will God keep us? Well, this is wonderful. It's starting right now. It's not that it's in the future, and actually at some point he's going to start keeping us. It's no, right now, if you're a Christian, God is keeping you. At this very moment, while you're watching this video, God is keeping you. Isn't that wonderful? And he will do until even after you arrive home. Even after you arrive at the heavenly city, it says he'll keep you forevermore. Yeah. Often when we hear God's words preached, when we read it, we kind of leave with a list of things to do, don't we? It's like, how should we change the way that we live? Like, how should this change our hearts? What should we do in response? And sometimes that's really appropriate and right. Sometimes there is a list of things that we should be doing after reading the Bible. But sometimes, like in Psalm 121, we aren't really called to do anything hard or tiring. Have a look down. What does the traveller do in this psalm? Just jot that down. Have a look. What does the traveller do in this psalm? So what the traveller does, well, he looks at those troubles that are facing him. He lifts his eyes up to the mountains. He sees the trouble ahead. and he cries out to God. Where does my help come from? He just says help. And then the whole of the rest of the psalm, you notice those first 2 verses are like I and me, they're in the first person. This is what the psalmist does, and the whole of the rest of the psalm is about God. It's in the third person, he and him. So yeah, he just says help, and then he remembers the wonderful truth about God, that God will keep him, God will keep you until you're home. Wonderful. So that's what we are to do. When you face any threat to your Christian walk home, cry out to God as your help. Any threat, no matter how big and evil or small, no matter how difficult or easy, cry out to God as your help. And then maybe remind yourself, like the psalmist did, of the wonderful assurance that God is your keeper, that your powerful and loving God will keep you through every danger as you travel to the heavenly city. Now, if you wouldn't call yourself a Christian, then just think about this. The Christian has a home that they're travelling to, and a wonderful, loving God who keeps them until they get there. If you want to start that walk home, if actually you've been hearing this, you think, yeah, I want to start that walk home, then all you need to do is call out to God. Say, like the psalmist does, I look to the mountains, I see all the things that are going to stop me. I see everything, all these difficulties, and I call out to you. See, that's what we're to do. If you want to start your walk home, then all you need to do is call out to God, knowing that you need help because of your sin, and knowing that he will be and has been your shade until you reach home. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. I hope this has been useful and encouraging to you. Next week, Sophie Ann's going to be reading and teaching Psalm 122, and it's a wonderful psalm, which kind of tells us what it's going to be like to finally arrive home. It's not one to miss, so we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.